Hello and welcome to another episode of the Climbing Arborist podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by my tree crew, Connor, which has been on a bunch of times before. Welcome, Connor.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us and being... I don't know, would you say you've been forced to come along? Or what did you say? Actually, it was your idea.
I think I might have come up with it.
It was your idea. Yeah. You're like, Sammy hasn't done a podcast yet.
Yeah, we need to get him on the screen.
And we're also joined by Sam, who is the newest member of our crew, but not so new anymore because you've been here for over a year now.
Yeah, but, it's like 14, 15 months now, yeah.
Yeah, but we just never done a podcast since you've been here, which is weird, and it like that just sounds so long since we haven't done one, but just finding the time, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, Sam's here, moved to Squamish, living the dream, aren't you? Skiing every weekend.
Yeah, in the winter, getting out on the skis.
Rock climbing every weekend in the summer.
Bit of that, yeah.
I just live vicariously through him.
I know.
He just shows me pictures and I'm like, yep, that's how I'm living my life too.
Yeah. He's actually doing everything that everybody wants to do when they think about moving to like British Columbia. They're like, I'll be hiking and rock climbing and mountain biking and skiing like every single weekend and living the life. And you've moved into some like mansion with a swimming pool. Guys, got it all going on.
Yeah, that's like I didn't even move here for any of that. I was just like, I want to do tree work in the PNW, and then moved to Squamish, and I was like, there's loads of cool shit I can do here as well at the same time.
Yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah.
That's why this part of the world captures everybody. Like, I only plan to come for a year, and 12 years down the line I'm still here, so.
Yeah, beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, first time podcast, should be fun.
Yeah, you got that nice smooth podcast voice as well. Nice calming, like people could put this on and like fall to sleep to listening to Sam talk.
A little bit of ASMR.
Yeah. Do you remember the first day that he worked with us, and we're like, because he just mentioned that he came in for the tree work, and we're like, Sam, what are you into? And he's like, I like climbing trees. I was like, yeah, but what do you do in like your spare time? And that, you're like, I just like trees.
Yeah. We're like, you can say other things.
Like, come on, tell it. Like,
yeah, it's one trick, like, because it was a bit of a hectic job. You guys had already been done it the day before, and I just came in just to kind of meet everyone.
Yeah,
that day, and then like stuff was already going, I think, by the time I got there, and then we kind of stopped at lunch, and then we could start chatting in real life, and then I just felt like I was getting interviewed. Like,
yeah, you're
pummeled by questions, because I think like everyone was there. It was like you two and Kev was there, and then Tom was probably there as well.
Yeah.
So it was like four of you being like,
yeah.
I was like, who do I look at?
Yeah, I remember when you were texting with me, like, I can come and meet the guys, and I was like, yeah, man, this is probably not the best job to come and start on, because this is going to be like full on. We're not really going to get a chance to talk to you. Obviously, we're doing the climbing, so you'll just be on the ground, and like, you don't really know, how we work and stuff. And you're like, no, I'll just come along, and I'll kind of stay out of the way, but just drag some branches and not get like too involved, and like, and I was like, well, yeah, I mean, come along if you like, but
you're not getting paid.
But I'm just warning you, like, we're not gonna have probably, because we already kind of know what the job is. We've kind of like,
it's a big Cyprus removal, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it's quite full on.
Yeah. But then you came and like you did exactly what you said. You just dragged some branches, and then finally at lunchtime we like got to sit down and like actually speak to him a little bit. Yeah.
You're a wonderfully unique person anyways, but when we're just like staring at you trying to ask good questions, you're just like, tree work was his only answer.
Yeah, tree work. I like tree work. But then after knowing him for a year now, we know that that's not all he likes.
Yeah. He's a... Yeah.
Now that you've just brought that up, why don't we start with that? Why don't you... it's... What is it now? Beginning of March. You've got a trip booked to New Zealand at the end of March.
31st,
31st. And, you and Nadia are going there to see the country, do some travelling while your visa's in place and you're of age that you can go.
Yeah.
But because you're gonna go for like a nice chunk, you think you're hoping to do some tree work over there, get some different experience of like working in different country with different trees.
Yeah.
Why don't you kind of let us know your thoughts on going to New Zealand, meeting arborists over there, the other side of the world, potentially if you get working on trees that you have no idea about because there are so many species that you've probably never even heard of.
Yeah.
You don't know the strength of the wood, the characteristics. You don't know what you'll find in the trees, different insects, animals.
You're overwhelming me.
Go on, give us a bit of a rundown of your thoughts on going to New Zealand and maybe picking up work while you're over there.
Yeah, we're going for 3 months, and my initial thoughts for going was purely for tree work. I mean, New Zealand's obviously a very beautiful place, and we're going to do some traveling, but like I just thought of like we were speaking about before, like the wider trees, just the different variety. Like over here, it feels like almost everything's a conifer, and then if not, you're rarely working on broadleaf trees. But yeah, it's a bit overwhelming just thinking about it, and like almost not being thrown into the deep end, but just not really knowing any of the species. And like you've said when you were over there, like there's so many different trees that like you've never seen before or heard before. So just excited to work with some people who like work in that environment all the time and are like really used to it and can like maybe give me some knowledge and help me get better at climbing and teach me some different things. But yeah, it's definitely very, very exciting, and just hopefully I can work with some cool people as well who are like really into the industry like we are, I suppose. Yeah But nervous as well. Definitely.
I mean, it's always a little bit you always get that like anxious nervousness whenever you go to like a new company, meet new people for the first time, and it's like going into day one of any job. You're like, you don't know people, so then you have to do that whole thing of trying to get to know people, feeling each other out, seeing who's about what, how people work, and like I don't think anybody enjoys like the first day at any company.
So awkward,
whether it be in tree work or or working in a gas station or whatever the job is. Like first day, not knowing where tools are, not knowing. Like you come from a company where you might use pieces of equipment every day. I'm like a big lover of using tarps all the time as much as possible to try and like catch debris on certain job sites where it makes sense, and using them to catch sawdust when you're logging up, where some companies might not even own tarps and they just do it a different way or whatever. So you have to feel out how different people and different companies work. So that's I always find like the weird bit about going to a new company.
And trusting your new like colleagues and stuff, like, because they're the ones who are going to rescue you if anything's going wrong, or like even just like running ropes for you, or
and try not to prove yourself as well. We've spoken about that loads of times, like just being confident in your own ability, but then not also trying to go out of your way to be like, I'm this rock star climber, which obviously I don't think I am. But when you're working for someone, you want to like show them that you can do the job efficiently and safely and stuff, but then also relaxing and being like, you don't have to prove anything to anybody other than the fact that you can do the job.
I think a lot of companies, like when you first go as well, they want to try you out. So they will, like the company I used to work for, they like book in a big job if they've got a new climber coming in. And it's like suddenly everything's new and you got like a high stakes job. It's better. I think it's better to like go in as do a day on the ground first and see how they run the show.
Exactly. Like a couple of trial days.
You can fit in with them.
The people you work with is the most important thing, without a doubt.
I think it's so important having the right mindset when you go to a new company, because like I said to you, I was like, when you get there, I mean, I know you and your personality, and you're so like, I think you almost like underestimate like your ability to climb and do certain jobs, and I think a lot of the time I'm almost like reiterating that you're skilled enough to do certain jobs that we put you on, because you're always worried about like, do I think you're doing it well enough and in an efficient enough manner and all this kind of stuff. So I know that you won't be going somewhere and trying to like almost like prove yourself, but at the same time it's an awkward thing because you go into a new company, and so I suppose I'm talking to everybody listening. If you go to a new company, most people's kind of feeling will be like, I need to prove myself. All the eyeballs are going to be on me. And so it might force you into working in a way that isn't the way that you would normally work. And especially, if you feel like you're a competent climber, you work in an efficient manner, you have a certain amount of skills. Maybe, I'm not even saying like you need to go in like and act like you've got more skills than you do. I think you need to go in, and as long as you've been honest to whoever you're working for and say, right, these are my level of skills, these are the types of job I've done in the past, this is what I'm comfortable to do on a regular basis. Set the bar at something that you can achieve. Don't like oversell yourself to try and get more money or to whatever, because you'll soon be found out. Or if you set the bar over and above what your capabilities are, then you're likely to go in and try and rush work, like sort of faster than you normally would, cutting corners that maybe you wouldn't normally do, but because you're trying to live up to this persona that you've already sold to them to get the job in the first place. Those first few days, you don't know what your ground crew's like, so you don't know if everybody's switched on, if everybody's paying attention to the climber, if people are good at rigging, if people can rescue you, like if your grounds crew can climb, all that. You don't know anything about anybody. So those first few days are so important that you don't go in like a bull in a china shop, like trying to prove yourself and trying to work faster than you normally would. You got to go in there, and it's tough because like tree work has always had that, that vibe of like there's like big egos everywhere. There's people trying to prove themselves everywhere, and so it can feel like a bit intimidating. And I feel like you have to put all that aside as best you can and just go about because like I say, you go into a new company, you don't know like the processes that each company has, but what you do know is tree climbing and rigging and pruning and cutting pretty much is your abilities when it comes to those things. So even though the cleanup might be different, the way that they talk to clients might be different, the amount of ground crew from one company to a next might differ. One might have one grounds person, one might have 4 grounds person. All that can differ, but your ability as like a climber stays the same, and that's one thing that you can control. So you just have to work within your means, not rush, because those first few days is when, if anything's going to go wrong, those days where you feel like you're under pressure and the eyeballs are on you. And at the end of the day, as an owner of a small tree service myself, when new people come in, I don't want, like I said to you, Sam, when you came in, I was like, those first few days, I don't want you trying to prove yourself. I don't want you doing anything you're unsure of, or I don't know, using equipment if you're not sure how it works, maybe like the chipper because it's a different chipper you've used, or just don't do anything out of character, out of the ordinary. Don't rush into anything. If you've got any questions, ask, because as a tree service owner, I worry that first week or two of anybody new coming in, because 1, interacting with the crew, 2, not knowing where everything goes, all the equipment, not knowing how the company works. It needs to be like a slow, gentle introduction. It doesn't want to be like, give this new guy the biggest tallest, widest spreading tree with the trickiest rigging possible. Like that just seems like absolutely ridiculous, because if you have an accident, that's on my conscience. If you have an accident, that's on the company's name, company's insurance. If you, like, I don't know, there's so many different things that could happen. You could drop something on a pedestrian, you could drop something on a car, you could drop something on somebody's house. So there's so many things that are unknown when somebody new comes in. So if you're new, going to a new company, just try and work as sensibly, safely, efficiently as possible, not trying to prove anything, because, you know, after 3-4 weeks, whatever is your ability will be glaringly obvious to everybody. So even if you try the hardest you possibly can, get a job done twice as fast as you normally would in that first day, you might get the job, but then in like a month later, the company owner is like, oh, hang on a minute, this guy doesn't work like that all the time. He was just trying to show off that first day. And now I've got a guy and I'm paying him a certain rate, but now he's like taking his foot off the gas and he's slacking, and that's not actually how he works. So,
it's a break-in period. Like for example, when you came for like the first 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't know what like caliber, let's say, of a climber you were, and then slowly but surely, as you worked with us more, I was like, oh, like Sam's a really good proficient climber. But for the first couple of weeks, it wasn't like you, Dan, like rushed him into anything, or like you said, like, yeah, we've got this huge job, let's see how good Sam really is, because it's not a test at the end of the day. Like, it's a job where everyone wants to go home safe. So yeah, for like the first couple of weeks, I was like, oh, can this guy even climb? No.
Yeah, you always gave me the options. You're like, if you want to do it, then let you do it. And it's not like I was the only person there. It's not like coming to company and then getting sent out with some people who aren't capable of doing a certain job, then you have to get forced into that position. It's like working here, everyone can do everything.
Yeah,
which is pretty nice.
Yeah, and that's it's so, like, I feel so lucky to have you guys, like, both being like awesome climbers. Myself being able to climb. When Tim works with us, Tim being able to climb, and so like I said to you recently, you know, if either of you ever have like a, I don't know, a really bad time of it, say family issues or partner issues, or you get a terrible night's sleep, or you're ill or whatever, like, always like bring that to me first thing in the morning, so that we can be like, right, okay, these are your duties for the day. And just so everybody knows on the crew, like, you know, Sam's not feeling it today, and because we all have those days, don't we? We all can bring things to work that are unforeseen, or issues that we didn't know about, and I don't know. And if your mind is like somewhere else most of the day, the worst thing you can be doing is like climbing around, unclipping carabiners and lanyarding on and clipping something else, and then like not double checking and I don't know, just not checking your gear properly, or not checking if somebody below you before you cut, and all this kind of stuff. So
yeah, it's the snowball effect, isn't it? It's like just one thing goes wrong, and then you might get frustrated in the tree, and then you think you're going slow, and then you make a mistake, and you're like, I can't believe that just happened, and then bad things can happen really quickly. So being open and honest in the morning as well about how you feel is massively important.
But going back to you going to New Zealand, if anybody's listening to this and they work in New Zealand or run a company or work for somebody, and they know they might be interested in just having Conor in for a day or two here or there, I don't know how much work you think you'll do, but like, reach out to probably best, like, maybe reach out to you on Instagram or something.
I think my name is just Conor Quaile on Instagram.
Conor Quaile on Instagram. Send Conor a message, and maybe you can line something up.
I'd love to. That's the plan.
And you're gonna be like legit on it. You've got a work permit. You're not. It's not like any dodgy.
No.
Dodgy cash in the hand.
I'm taking my gear as well. So yeah, but I've got a year working holiday visa. So yeah, nice. Very excited.
Yeah, I think like another thing with like going to a new place is always like just being open to like do things differently. Like, as long as it doesn't make it less safe, if like a new company wants you to do something a certain way and you think it's going to be less efficient, like maybe it's not the right time to like kind of argue that stuff at the beginning. Like you can work how they want to work and then talk to them about it afterwards and say, oh, it's like maybe I would have done this, but like, yeah, like you've got the comms on your helmet, so like if other companies have comms as well, that makes a massive difference, especially it's like starting somewhere new.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, and I'm sure people working in New Zealand have a massive variety of different ways of like removing trees or pruning trees than we have here, and the fact that they've got so many different trees and species and that, like they're going to have different reasons for doing things. So yeah, definitely excited to go over and learn some new things.
Yeah, and it's good. It's going to be good. Like working with different companies is wicked, because even like when Sam came in, like you've climbed and worked the same that you've done for ages. You've worked with me for a long enough time that you see all the like the tools and techniques that I use, which like, I don't know, once you've been climbing for a while, you seem to like narrow down those things that you do on a daily basis and the equipment you use on a daily basis. And then when Sam came in, he uses like a bunch of different gear that I don't use, and he prefers certain techniques that I don't use, or maybe that I'll use like once in a while. And so I remember once Sam had been with us for a while, and you saying, "Oh, it's really cool because you know Sam does this, and Sam uses this bit of gear," and you know it kind of give you a bit of a fresh look at like another person climbing.
Yeah,
and that's what it'd be like going to New Zealand. That you'll see different guys using like different gear, and it's great because you know a lot of it you might think, "Oh, that's not really for me. That's not how I climb." But then somebody will whip something out, and you're like, "Oh, that's wicked." And that maybe just add that like a bit of piece of gear to your arsenal and to bring it out in a certain situation, and just like working with other people just like really like broadens your horizons to see stuff.
It can add a bit of excitement to tree work as well too, like because when like you said Sam come in, like you do like your gear and have like quite a wide variety of stuff, and that like intrigued me into maybe getting more of my own kind of different bits of gear. And I'll still never get in a Kimbo, but you know what I mean. It's
still never used it, I don't think.
That's true. Yeah, but yeah.
Nice. So yeah, New Zealand. Sammy boy, what you got?
You had an accident the other day. Well, let's not call it an accident.
Injury. I was just I went up what was it, spruce, just SRT, shot the line in, so like outside the canopy, and then base tied it, and then went up the inside where it had come down. And then once I got to the top, I then pulled up a speed line, because we're going to speed line the branches out. We were just removing like the top section of branches that had died off, and then bringing the stem down to where it was live again. And when I was pulling my line up that had the speed line on, I was kind of wedged up against a branch, like on my chest level, so I was like kind of braced against that, and then like pulling up, and then where it was all knotted together, joining the speed line on, that got stuck in a union of a branch lower down. And then so I was like pulling quite hard on that, and then I pulled really hard, and that pulled my chest into the branch, and then I heard a crunch sound. So either it's like maybe potentially the cracked rib, or I guess cartilage, or I think cartilage can make that sort of noise as well, can't it?
I'm not exactly sure.
It's holding your ribs together.
Yeah,
but,
intercostal muscles or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's intercostals in between. I wouldn't have thought muscle would crunch, but
no, yeah, but you might
like I heard it, not just felt it.
Yeah,
but then it's generally like not hindered me too much. But then I went indoor rock climbing the other night, and then that made it worse.
Yeah, it's little things like that as well, little injuries that you get without even realising you're about to injure yourself. You know what I mean? Like
it wasn't doing anything interesting, just pulling a rope up.
Yeah.
So you is there anything to be learnt from that? Like, are you gonna, or was it just, I don't know, a weird freak accident.
Well, I was thinking about it, and like it'd be better if I was up a bit higher and you brace against your abs, because you're not going to break your abs. It's just going to hurt a little bit. You just tense harder. Whereas, yeah, bones and stuff can crunch.
Yeah, and just be more conscious of body position as well when you're in a tree.
Yeah. I think I can't remember if I was using that hand ascender that we love.
Yeah.
I think I was maybe using that, and then it was getting really hard, so then I decided to pull from the other side of
Reach
it
under.
to like pull more directly. So maybe if I just continued pulling on the hand ascender pulley, then that would have been pulling from above rather than pulling sideways into the branch, then that could have avoided that. But
You know, it's weird. I know, like, Connor, I was going to say you work out a bit, but like you mainly do running.
Yeah.
But I met a lady today who's like a yoga instructor, and she does all this different stuff with like these certain like balls to like stretch out stuff and like build strength in like different parts, like say like your lower back and stuff. And I just like, it's like for that kind of injury that you're talking about, Sam. It's like our job is so like taxing on different parts of the body, and you're always like reaching and twisting and bending, and like movements that are so like quick, like sharp, quick, fast, like abnormal, like especially when you're in and like moving through the canopy and something gets caught and like you yank your lanyard because it's like hooked around a stub, or like your helmet gets caught and then you whack off, I don't know, like a dead stub, or like all these different weird things that we do in tree work.
Not normal life positions at all.
And things that sometimes is like reactive. You don't even think about it. You just like you twist really sharply, or like you're cutting a branch off with your handsaw, and then it's way heavier than you think, and it like pulls you down and like down to your left side and yanks your shoulder down and stuff. Is it like, how important do you think it is to like to do things outside of work to keep you fit, or is that just like if you're that kind of person? Like,
I don't know, like, not that you have to be that kind of person, I think, but like if you're not taking care of yourself outside of work, like you're way more likely to get injuries, because if you're not treating yourself, like, you don't have to call yourself an athlete, but at the end of the day, like if you're climbing trees every day and dragging branches and constantly on your feet and climbing ladders and pole pruning and whatever, like that's going to take a massive toll. And if you're not like looking after your body and trying to be as healthy as possible, like I remember back home the lads used to kind of like slag me and stuff for going to the gym, and they're like, that'll never last. Like when I started tree work, so the first couple of weeks in, they realised, I go to the gym quite a lot, and they're like, that'll never last. Once you do tree work a couple of years, you'll never go to the gym. But like you need to take care of your body, and you need to be doing some mobility work and stuff like that, because like you said, all those positions, like you're constantly twisting, and you probably still will get injured even if you are trying to like help yourself as much as possible, but it's definitely important. Yeah,
a lot of
definitely
like repetitive like
strain injuries
and stuff.
Yeah.
So like important to work out like opposite muscle sets. Like we do so much pulling, but you're never doing any really pushing. Yeah.
The guy Lawrence Schultz, he constantly switches his saw to the opposite side and changes things over because of repetitive strain injuries.
Yeah,
I've seen him talk about that quite a lot, and just the fact that we should be treating ourselves more like athletes than anything else, and not in like a gloating I'm an athlete kind of way, but in you use your body every single day, like you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and stretching and like warming up, like something that's I'm pretty bad at doing that, but we should try and warm up before we heading up trees and stuff. And
absolutely, or at least do some movement on the ground before you set off. And
like a lot of time, first thing you do is getting heavy stuff out of the truck.
And
then you've not warmed up, so like like lifting my bag, for example, it's ridiculously heavy.
But it's weird, we just don't treat it like what it actually is. Like if you were about to climb something, you'd probably do like a little bit of mobility or stretch out your shoulder or do something, but just because it's our job, you just don't treat it the same for whatever reason. You should, and I try to be better at it every now and again, but it's so easy to forget, and you just go into robot mode and you're up the tree in seconds and you realise you haven't done any form of warm up or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think the bigger companies are trying to implement like warm ups and stuff in the morning, but
Yeah, do you know what? Do you know what it is like it? Yeah, I reckon like some form of warm up would be is very important, or should be very important. But I think it's what people think of as a warm up, because if you're like, if it's like a winter's morning and your body's completely cold, you haven't done anything. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. You jump out of the truck and you're about to start doing a job. You shouldn't then all of a sudden start doing warm ups that are gonna injure you. Cause
touching your toes or something.
Yeah, like really deep stretches and stuff, because that's gonna injure you before anything else. It's doing like, I don't know, gentle things like arm circles and like, I don't know, just like you just like gently get the body moving, not like going full on into some deep stretches.
Yeah, 0 to hero.
Yeah. And it's the gentle movement and stuff. Like, say you've got all your tools out the truck and you've done a walk around and like assessed the risks of the job and stuff, and then you're about to jump up a tree. Maybe at that point, that's when you just start like doing some kind of limbering up of your upper body and your arms and your forearms and your shoulders and your back muscles and so that kind of stuff. But because like if you injure yourself, that means I was saying to this lady today who I spoke to, who was the yoga lady, and I was like, a lot of people, if you work an office job, work from home, work behind a counter, any of these jobs, if you injure your leg, your foot, your ankle, your wrist, all this kind of stuff, you can still go to work. If we do any of that, you probably can't go to work, or if you can, you're probably going to make that injury worse, and then you're not going to be able to go to work in the following week. So it's all about preventative. And you were saying about Lawrence Schultz like switching his saw over to either side and stuff like that. He can't like show any data to that, but it just makes sense. And if you can show data to something like that, it's already like way too late. Like it'll probably take 15 years of hanging a heavy saw off of the same side every day until you start feeling issues. And once you start feeling issues, your body is probably so out of alignment that then like trying to do something to counteract it is going to be like you're so far gone at that point. Yeah. So like those things that seems like
but
a really good idea.
But a good thing as well is like people at the end of the day, if they've got a dull saw, they're going to sharpen the saw because it's their tool that they use every day at work, and they want it to perform to the best of its abilities or whatever. But it's the same as your body is your tool at the end of the day. Like, and you have to use that every day and rely on it to be able to climb trees and stuff like that. And if you're just going home and sitting on the couch every single evening and doing nothing to help it, eventually your body's going to become dull like the saw, and then you're screwed. So. Yeah.
And there's also like the whole nutrition side of it, and
I mean, you could get into so much.
Drinking enough at work. Like that's what I always, especially in winter when it's cold, I struggle to drink enough.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to the end of the day, it's like, I'm not even touched my water bottle. Yeah. And then you can't drink a lot because when it's really cold, you don't feel like drinking the really cold water.
Yeah. Tom used to give us so much stick for basically being camels and storing water because we just never drink. So bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another big topic, definitely.
Yeah. So I just put out a video the other day. I don't know when we'll release this podcast, but video the other day was on like pruning Douglas firs, which where we are in the Pacific Northwest is one of the most common trees we have and one of the most common trees we work on. So I just wanted to like touch on that a little bit, because some like many people will have different opinions. People might have opposing opinions, and the way that I made the video was from hearing Julian Dunster talk about Douglas fir trees and testing that he'd done on Douglas fir trees, like when it came to like high winds and thinning out the canopy. So basically the video was about not thinning the canopy of a Douglas fir tree if it's like an isolated tree. So if it's a tree in an urban environment that's not part of like a big stand of trees, so that's going to get hit by wind differently to what like a stand of trees is going to get hit by. And through working here for the last 12 years in Vancouver, and working on so many Douglas fir trees, but also seeing Douglas fir trees, you know, in the neighborhood, and ones that had like massive limbs shed off them, I felt strongly wanting to make that video, because you know, you can have opinions on thinning trees of all different types, you know, of species and genus and that kind of stuff, but this was very specific to Douglas fir trees, what I was referring to, because I've seen Douglas fir trees that have been thinned, and then once they've been thinned and they get hit by another big windstorms, then it's just like constant thinning, because the branches are getting snapped left, right and centre, because branches on mature Douglas fir trees get so long, and for the length of them, the diameter of the branches doesn't get all that big, so they get like the longer limbs on a mature fir tree might get to like 25 to 35 feet long, and still only sometimes might be, I don't know what, like 5-inch diameter at the trunk, and so it's got to support that whole limb. And the thing you'll find with Douglas fir limbs is that they're not that flexible. If you look at other trees blowing in the wind, maybe like beech trees or
even cedar.
Yeah, beech trees, cedar trees, they're really flexible, and like they kind of move in the wind, and you can see them flexing the stems and the trunks and the individual branches. Everything's flexing like nicely, whereas Douglas fir, and they don't have that same flexibility in the limbs, and that's when they'll just eventually pop off. And the idea behind what Julian had found out by doing this like research is that on Douglas fir trees, mature ones, the limbs almost like act as like a buffer to each other, like a bit of a shock absorber. So like when the limbs are like moving in strong winds, they'll like clash together and prevent each other from overextending, and it's the overextending when the limbs are going to fail. So being like leaving limbs that are quite close together means that those limbs are going to like hit each other in strong winds. Also leaving like a lot more like internal growth is going to like probably like dampen the strength of the wind as it comes through. So you're getting dampening from the physical dampening of the two, like or the limbs like clashing together, and then you get like I don't know how much dampening like having foliage like within the canopy is also going to add, but yeah, that was the research and the results that Julian got. So I felt like that video was important to make, because so many tree companies around here are still
spiral thinning and
still
stuff,
doing
isn't
that
it?
pruning. Which
Yeah.
the term in Pacific Northwest, there's a term that gets thrown around a lot, and even a lot of like homeowners know it. They call it spiral pruning, and that just means thinning. But yeah, it's become a term, and it's a term that like a lot of homeowners seem to know and seem to think that that's what they need to do for like the safety of the tree. And the thing is, the only pruning really that is going to improve the safety of a Douglas fir tree, if it's like hanging over your house or that kind of stuff, is reducing back the end weight of those big long limbs, because it's taking back that leverage by taking back the end like 8 feet or so. That relieves that limb of such a great amount of force, even in like not in wind, but as soon as you add a bit of wind, like the amount of force added to or removed by taking off like the tip of the branch is incredible. So if you've got a mature Douglas fir tree over the top of your house, your garage, the sidewalk, the road, then that's like the most important thing to do, because it's going to be those massive 20-foot limbs that are going to shear off in the wind, that are going to come spearing down, possibly into your car, your house, your garage, that kind of thing. And obviously, the more limbs that are on a tree, the more likely a broken branch is going to get hung up rather than like just flying through like a thin open canopy.
Yeah. You see a lot of people like just lifting them to ridiculous heights.
Yeah.
And then so but they don't reduce the branches in above that. So then if that branch breaks, it's got so far to fall and build up speed.
Yeah.
Before it hits anything.
Yeah.
Whereas if you'd reduced all the ones you'd taken off, and then you've, like you say, you've got barriers for if anything smaller above comes off.
Yeah. We see it all the time as well, like when you get called to a job that you're doing some head weight reduction on, it's most likely because the people who live there have had a massive branch snap out, and it's always like the ones you were saying, like the longer overextending ones that stick out a bit further than every other branch for whatever reason, and they're like 25, 30 feet long. So it kind of, in my mind, it only makes sense, but then, like you said, not everybody like believes that that's the case anyways.
I think so. There's obviously situations where you're gonna thin a tree. So say if like you work on the North Shore a fair bit, and that people have trees and they want that ocean view. So I understand that you're gonna like they call it windowing, so cutting a window out of a canopy of a tree and they thin it so they get this ocean view. And that's completely understandable, because those trees are usually not
a hazard
in an area of hazard. They're usually right at the end of the garden, where there's no buildings underneath and stuff. And as long as the arborist, you like communicate the fact that it is potentially adding risk to that tree by doing that kind of pruning, or if you're going to be doing this pruning, also we feel like you should like tip in these long limbs because they're the ones that are going to fail. So there's always going to be like an argument to like, oh no, but our clients need it thinned because they want this ocean view. And like I totally get that. I've been in the industry for long enough where there's always going to be a certain situation that's like different to the rule. But the idea behind the video is that, having seen so many Douglas fir limbs like fail and like just miss something really massive that could have been such a major incident, every client that I go to who wants to prune the Douglas fir, no matter if they want to raise the canopy, thin the canopy, do whatever I'm being called to like quote on, if their tree's got like these huge overextended limbs, I'll try and explain in like the most simple terms possible that is a risk. And whether they want us to do that or not, then I suppose it's up to them. Because obviously it's going to cost a fair bit more money than what maybe they're getting me into quoting in the first place, but I'll always communicate that to them and say, this is a risk on this species of tree, and if you've got kids that are playing in your garden or whatever, then this is a serious consideration. But I do understand that there's situations where if your tree's at the end of the garden and the sun comes behind it and you want to get more light into your garden, and there's nobody ever going to be underneath that tree, or it's like very, very unlikely, then it's a different situation. But on the whole, that's
as a safety concern.
That's what I believe.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, there's always going to be jobs where you're doing things where you're like, fuck, as an industry standard, maybe it's not the best thing to do, but some people just want what they want with their trees, and if it's not a hazard, then sometimes you do it.
Yeah. And then sometimes people just want, like, you go to somewhere and they want their tree pruned, and you ask them why, and they're like, oh, well, it's not been done for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not even like...
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So you don't have to prune your trees.
Yeah, that's the first question I always ask people that maybe send me an email and say, I want to prune my tree, can you come and take a look? And the first question is always, what are you trying to achieve? What is the purpose of pruning?
Yeah.
Maybe 65-70% of people know why they want it pruning, and then the other 30% will be like, oh, because it hasn't been done in a while, or I heard that I should get my tree pruned. My friend told me I should get my tree pruned. Like there has to be something that you're trying to achieve by pruning it, whether that's safety, whether that's enough fruit production from a fruit tree. There's just so many reasons, like building clearance, aesthetics, driveway, like clearance over the road. There's like so many different reasons, or like just containing a 15-foot tree that you want to keep for another 40 years, but you want to contain it, keep it fairly small. You want a like nice ornamental Japanese maple tree that you don't want you getting to that like 35 feet range that maybe some of them can get here. And you got to have a reason. Yeah
I mean, it's good that they call us, we get more work, but they should have reasons.
Let's touch on something very, very important. I don't know, like, and that's just like injuries in the industry, and like especially like fatalities and stuff, because in maybe, I don't know if it was possibly 3 months ago or something, a guy here died here in North Vancouver. Most recently, I shared on my social media, there was a guy down in somewhere near San Diego, I believe, and he was like pruning palm. I think they're Mexican fan palms, but don't quote me on that. He was pruning a palm, and it's become apparent to me now, after like asking a few more questions, that certain type of palm is renowned for like suffocating people and trapping climbers. So that was another fatality, which just sounds horrific. And I don't think talking about incidents and injuries and fatalities within the tree world can be talked about enough. Like, you can't talk about it once and think, okay, well, I've spoken about that now. Like, you have to constantly be like reiterating that fact so that people don't get complacent, because like with us, we want to keep like a zero incident record for as long as possible. Like, I don't want any of you boys to ever have an incident here, but just because you haven't doesn't mean that it's not going to happen if we don't talk about it. So like, and I feel like talking about all these incidents more means we're less likely to have it happen, because we're constantly aware of it. Just because it doesn't happen on our job site doesn't mean that you can't talk about other people's incidents and just like bring that to the forefront of your mind, and bring like safety to the forefront of your mind, because
it's better to learn from other people's mistakes than it is your own, for sure.
I think some people may think like when they speak about it or something like that they might be like vulnerable, and that I'm not exactly sure. I just feel like the more you talk about it, the more you're aware of things that go wrong, the more you learn, like the less likely it might be for it to happen to you, and that like you also realize that these things do happen, and that they're a lot more common than I think a lot of us realize in tree work as well. Like, there's so many accidents all of the time. I just think talking about it is massively important.
And what I've said to you like a bunch of times. Well, I think even I suppose even more important, and it's not just about like talking about injuries. It's just communication in general, like constantly, because there's so many things that run through my head, and that I'm always like saying to you. I'm like, I feel like I'm constantly nagging all of the time, and it really, like, it annoys me to feel like I'm nagging, but I'm constantly like dropping in little things just to try and make the company run smoother all of the time. So So one day I might be like, oh, can you just make sure, like, at the end of the day, you just, like, do this tiny little thing, and just, like, we'll get into a habit of doing that every day. Oh, and then the next day I'll be like, oh, can we just do this, like, every day? Make sure that that piece of equipment goes back in this one little place every day. And, like, sometimes I'm like, God, like, every day I'm coming in asking to do something new, or like maybe on a job site, oh, can you, or I suppose at the end of the day I say, oh, can you just, like, let me know how everything goes, if client's happy, if, you know, obviously let me know if anything's damaged, but, like, let me know if everything's good, if you're on your way back, if how you've left the job, if we need to go back, if just kind of give me, like, an overall update, and then it'll put me at ease. And it's just, like, I'm sure any business is all about communication, but I can't, like, stress enough how important communication is for our safety, for, like, the smooth running of, like, the crew on the job site, the smooth running of everything with the client, like, having them know what's going on and why we're doing what we're doing, and then even down to individual tasks on the job site, like the communication of, like, the person on the rigging rope and the climber in the tree. Obviously now with the like Bluetooth headsets, which is, like, a game changer. I feel like communication is so valuable to, like, preventing any kind of injuries and incidents, like, you know, letting each other know if, like, a saw is blunt at the end of the day, or, you know, this saw, I didn't get a chance to sharpen it today, but, you know, we need to do that first thing tomorrow morning, and, like, have somebody on that while somebody else is getting up the tree, and all these things. Because if you send somebody up a saw into the tree and then they get it and it's blunt, and then they're getting frustrated and angry, but they're like, oh, I'm just going to stick with it because I haven't got time for anybody to sharpen this, and then they're pushing through the cut harder, and then they're like, that's going to cause potential issues, like, and then the frustration is going to cause issues. So communication, man, it's like, I feel like that's such a big part of tree work, and maybe undervalued, underappreciated how important communication is. And as like a company owner, I just see, just, like, if everybody just talks a little bit and, like, just lets each other know, like, what's going on, what tools are good, what tools are bad, if you know, a sling's been cut, if this, like, if we're constantly, like, trying to improve the company and are trying to improve, like, systems that we have, like, we have systems that we do every day, like the way that we get the truck ready, unpin it, get to the job site, do the walk around, you know, identify hazards. We have, like, systems in place, but, like, every like few weeks, like, figuring a little tweak to those, like, systems and how we can communicate things better. It's like,
it makes everybody a little bit calmer as well when everybody's constantly, like, letting each other know what's happening and how things are going. Like, it kind of makes everything just run a little bit smoother, and then it keeps you informed as well. Like you said, if anything needs to be done that we haven't got to do on a job site and stuff, so then that'll make the next day run a bit smoother because you're already aware of what might be dull or what might be broke or what we didn't get done the day before, and just, yeah, it makes everything roll a lot smoother.
Yeah, like having like Jobber to, like, bring all the information together is pretty useful for, like, looking at a job beforehand, so you can think about, like, I might think about something I want to bring or don't want to bring to a job site depending on what I've looked at. And then, like, having the group chat as well, like on WhatsApp, being able to, like, communicate with everyone at the same time makes life a lot easier. Yeah,
and taking your own initiative as well to let other people know what needs to be happening and all that kind of stuff too is important, rather than just expecting someone else to know. Because I feel like sometimes I just expect you to be aware of things, or kind of forget to let you know that the chip truck's full but you're working tomorrow, but I'm working for someone else the next day, so I kind of have completely forgotten. If I don't let you know, then that could ruin the whole next morning, and yeah, things like that definitely play a big part.
It's those things that just seem so obvious that you think, oh, I don't need to let somebody know that because it's like they probably know it, and I don't want to be that guy that's like texting somebody something that they already know. It's like I feel like that's the part of it that prevents people making that communication, because they're like, oh, they must already know that, because like I know that, and it's obvious, so that somebody else will know that. And I feel like the communication, like I was saying, sometimes that like I almost annoy myself because I think I'm just nagging all the time by saying all these like tiny little things. Oh, let's do this, let's do that, and I feel like there's something every day.
Yeah,
but,
there is.
Yeah, yeah.
There is.
Let's make this a little better. Let's do that.
He doesn't stop.
But it's only because I feel like if you already know it, then great. Like, what's the problem if I just say it again, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, no, it's cool. Like, yeah, I've already done that, or I know that, or I plan to do that, or whatever. Yeah. But then if it's something that either you've forgotten about and it's like it hasn't crossed your mind, or like, it just makes everything run so much smoother when nobody talks to anybody and nobody lets anybody know about anything. Like
it goes back to what we were originally speaking about as well, like safety, like for communication. If you're looking up at someone who's about to like rig a piece and they don't realise their lines are crossed with the rigging line, and you don't know if you should or shouldn't say, because maybe you've only been working there a couple of weeks, and you're like, I wonder, should I let them know that like they're about to rig down on top of their line or whatever. Like, always speak up and always communicate, and regardless of if they do or don't know, you've said that you're aware of it, and then they can tell you that, oh yeah, I was about to change over, or yeah, thanks for telling me, I didn't realise that my lines were crossed, or things like that. Like,
yeah, you've said that to me a bunch of times, like oh, you know your climbing line looks like it's crossed there, and like I think you might have said it to me maybe 8-12 times or something, and every time you'd said it, apart from one, that I was aware of it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm just making this cut and I'm gonna reposition, or from your angle it looked like something was crossed but it wasn't crossed, or maybe I'd slackened my main line off but it wasn't crossed or whatever. But I remember there was one time when you'd said it and I was like, oh yeah, I didn't see that. Like, and so no matter how many times somebody says like, yeah, I know, I've got it, I was aware of that, it's like from your angle it might look crossed but no, it's not crossed at all, or I'm rigging it to my left and you thought I was going to the right. No matter how many times somebody says something and it's not providing you information you didn't already know, there's going to be that one time that like, so if you as like the climber act like a bit of a dick and be like, yeah, I know, like you don't need to tell me, I'm the one up here, or whatever, have that kind of response, then your groundsperson is going to stop like giving you that information, and you're going to come across a time where they could have said something, they saw it, but they didn't want to tell you because of the way that you've reacted, like however many times before. So that's like that's another thing. Like, not everybody's going to get on with everybody that they work with. We're not all going to be like best of friends. We're not all going to like hang out and outside of work do stuff or whatever. But they're your work colleagues, and it's like, and you're all looking out for each other on the job site. So you got to have a level of respect for the people that you work with when you're on the crew, and not like treat each other, how you wouldn't want to be treated, and don't speak to each other, don't talk down to each other, because we're all human beings and we're all looking out for each other, and like,
the more eyes the better when you're doing like even if you're not doing a dangerous job, but like when you're doing something that could have pretty bad repercussions, like the more eyes on things the better, and the more people speak and let each other know what they see and don't see and stuff like that is only ever going to help. So yeah, it's massive. Communication is key.
And Sammy, let's just final topic. You don't sound Scottish, but you are Scottish. You were working in Leeds before you came here.
Yeah.
Working on a crew there. So, and that was that a year ago? Have you been here a year now?
Year and a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Last November.
So,
a year ago November, yeah.
Why don't you talk about your experiences and differences in the tree work back in England as you've found it in the last year working here? Because obviously I've worked in the UK, but that was like 12 years ago now. Well, not even longer than that. But to you, it's probably still fresh in your head, and how people worked, the different type of work there is, the different risks that are presented, different equipment used, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's super different over here. Like, everything's very single stem. Like, there's a lot, like Conor was saying earlier, there's a lot of conifers around. And then even when you're not working on conifers, like the alders and the maples, which are pretty common, they're all like very straight up and down as well. They don't have like big spready limbs like you do in the UK, like the beeches and the oaks, and even like the sycamores and stuff. Are like the maples, they're so much wider spread than over here. So there's like a lot more time kind of stood on your spurs, like rather than going out limb walking, and like even on like dismantles and that, like UK, you might be going out bringing a limb in a few pieces, where here it's rare. You have to like get off the stem to like you just reach out and clip out as far as you can, and that's generally enough. You're rarely going out like tip tying and bringing stuff in round. And like gardens, there tends to be a lot more space. Compared like over here, there's more space for doing that. And so using bigger chippers a lot of the time.
What was like a typical kind of jobs that you were doing? Like over here we get like a lot of Dan was saying, like reducing some overextended branches on firs and fir removals and stuff like that, like conifer removals. What is like?
Yeah, it's like a lot more removal based over here, I think.
Okay.
And then when you are doing the pruning, it's kind of like quite small trees, I find a lot of the time, like going into stratas and things and little ornamentals, a lot of Japanese maple pruning sort of thing. Whereas UK, you get like big reductions, like big mature beeches where you're going around taking like a metre or two off around the whole canopy, whereas I think I've done like 1 or 2 whole canopy reductions over here. And same with the thinning, like a lot of broadleaf thinning in the UK, which you don't get here. I think like a big thing I notice is the wires, like utilities and stuff, like you're working close to that a lot more over here. Like UK, everything's underground, so you're not having to worry about that. You have the BT cable and that's it, so like pretty safe in that regard. Whereas here it's like you've got the primaries, the secondaries, the service drops going into the house, so you got to think about that around your tree, but also like around your trucks and stuff. Like I don't work anywhere that uses the boom trucks, but if you're using them, then you've got them to worry about in terms of setting your truck up and where you're driving. And although recently there's a company I work for, they bought a spider lift recently, so like that is a consideration now. Although you in the bucket might be nowhere near the lines, depending how you got it set up, the boom, the other end of the boom might be like swinging round and coming into contact with things.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of like in some ways I miss like some of the UK stuff in terms of definitely, you don't go out around the limbs and stuff as much, and kind of like it's kind of like more competition style climbing where you're going out to the edge of stuff and doing things. It's not as common over here, I guess.
Yeah, Dan, you've spoken about doing like massive London plane reductions and stuff like that when you're back home. It sounds really interesting. Obviously,
from working here, it would be cool to go back to the UK and do a bit of work, just for I don't know, just a short amount of time, just to climb some of those like big mature beech trees and London plane. I mean, actually, London plane maybe not, just because
in the winter.
Yeah, just because they're full of those like nasty balls. But yeah, like big oak trees and stuff. Like, I mean, to be honest, it wasn't too often you get a chance to climb those and do like a really nice prune, maybe just like dead wooding or something like that.
Yeah, dead wooding was definitely like used to, because you're going over the whole tree, but there's not a lot of work to do everywhere, so you actually get to kind of swing around a bit,
to climb around a lot. Yeah. Well, but yeah, the work here is definitely quite a lot different, and there's like some really big pros to working over here. Like, there's never that. Well, for me, where we work, there's never that far you got to drag any branches.
Yeah.
So as a person on the ground, like, man, like compared to the UK where you're dragging down like tiny little alleyways and like
through
side
houses.
gates and through houses. Like, I think if you tell people over in North America that you've had to take a stump grinder through a house before, like a little like one of those little Rayco ones or whatever they are. Nobody's going to believe you because they're like, as if you would do that. But then when they realise there's like terraced houses and there's no access to the back garden apart from through the house, it's like there's only one way to do it. So I don't miss all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like the trees for sure.
Yeah, it's nice always having a back lane here. Like you never have to drag stuff from the back garden, basically.
It's just two gardens,
Yeah.
Working in the back or the front.
I mean, it's a bit different when you go like you work on the North Shore as well. Like,
we do get long drives.
And up the hill as well.
Yeah, the North Shore can be
pretty,
dreadful sometimes.
Pretty steep, yeah.
Yeah.
Up lots of sets of steps. But I used to do a lot more like crane work over in the UK as well. I thought there'd be more over here, to be honest, than what I've done. But
I suppose over here, I mean, there is obviously some cranes that can reach and stuff, but over here, quite a lot of the trees are quite a bit taller than.
That's the point as well. Like I think the first week I was here, I was up trees taller than I'd ever been up in the UK.
Yeah.
And that's like standard size.
Yeah.
It's pretty mad.
And cranes aren't going to benefit quite a lot of trees over here that much either, like rather than just a standard takedown.
Yeah.
But I mean, some companies do have cranes and to do crane work every day, but.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got easy access to a tree, then taking it down just manually by rigging it and all that kind of stuff is a lot of time is much more financially beneficial than getting like a craning. Because if you don't need a crane for a specific reason, then and you have like the crew with the ability to just dismantle a tree, then that's usually like better in terms of like profit margin and stuff.
Massively, yeah.
Whereas as soon as you get a crane involved,
I think it's maybe due to that, like not having stuff as widespread as well. Like I was saying earlier, like because that's the stuff that if it does need rigging, then that's what takes a long time, having to bring those big long low laterals in over something. Whereas if you can just pick it up away from everything.
Yeah. Well, next week we've got a nice, interesting, large cottonwood tree to remove, so we'll probably be doing some spider leg rigging and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully, if the weather plays nice, we'll try and get some good footage and maybe if like timing goes well for the job and all that kind of stuff, try and make a bunch of different videos on different rigging techniques, and if we do some spider leg rigging and tip tying and negative rigging and all that kind of stuff, should be good fun. But I reckon we'll wrap it up for this time around. But it was fun.
Pleasure as always.
Always good to chat about information and
think about.
I always like doing this kind of stuff because as well it's almost like we're having like a team safety meeting talking about safety issues. You're
tricking us into a little meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Now I can get you to sign a form saying that we did like a safety meeting. So, but rather than us three listening to the information each of us talking about, everybody else can benefit from it too. So
it's always good to regurgitate some information and rethink things and speak about things. I mean, we do it quite a lot anyways, don't we? But it's always good to have an actual sit down dedicated to like chatting about previous jobs and experiences and stuff.
Definitely.
Aye.
Yeah. Just finding the time and the day to do it, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice one, fellas. Appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Connor, Sam. Cheers, buddy.
Sweet. Thank you.